So you're under contract with your client, now what? The real estate exam doesn't teach you that, does it? Your broker has ghosted you. The agent who said they would help you is nowhere to be found on a Friday night at 8 o'clock.
Where the heck are you?
What?
What in the heck do you do next? Hey, it's Mark here with the Hiller Group, brokered by eXp Realty. My team and I have you covered here along the beautiful Florida Panhandle from Pensacola all the way through Panama City, where we have been fortunate enough to help over 1,200 families buy or sell real estate in the past 10 years alone. So you're under contract. What's next? I'll tell you what's next. You've got 180 things that an agent is responsible for once you go under contract all the way through closing. Here are some of the top things that you need to focus on once you are under contract. You need to review and confirm all contract details, contingencies, deadlines. Make sure you have like a checklist of all those important dates so you don't miss any of the contract deadlines. Next thing I can recommend more than anything is keep up communication with your client. Over the years, I have heard horror stories about agents just kind of ghosting their client once they go under contract.
Goodbye, thank you.
Goodbye.
All right.
Not keeping them in the loop. If there's one thing your clients want to know, it's they want to be transparent. They want to know what is going on throughout the transaction. They are nervous. It is your job to remove all the nervousness. You need to make sure that your client also understands what their responsibilities are as part of the contract, making sure they get their earnest money deposit turned in, making sure they know they're going to have to pay for their inspection upfront and their appraisal upfront. Now, these are all things you should have done before you go under contract, but make sure you remind them as soon as you get under contract. And again, be proactive versus reactive. If you have an issue that pops up, tell your client. Try to find an answer quickly, but then take that to your client. Don't keep them in the dark and think you're gonna like sweep it underneath the rug and not properly explain that to them. But what I always tell my agents is, if you're gonna break bad news, have some good news with it. So try to find the solution. You know, for example, if the agent won't allow us in for a certain day on the inspection, well, have the backup day lined up too. Hey, we can't do it this day, but I've got it scheduled for this day, and this is how we're gonna make it work. So have the solution in hand when you reach out. Next thing you need to do is make sure you schedule your home inspection. Typically in the Florida contract, we have between 7 and 15 days is our inspection period. And this allows the time for the buyers to go in and have their inspections done on the property. You want to get your inspector in there as soon as possible, in my opinion. That way, if there's any major issues that you may need to have an expert go in, like a electrician, HVAC guy, plumber, pest inspector, like all these people may have to go in and go do a deeper inspection on the house, because again, the home inspector, they're there for more of surface level and to make sure that there's no major issues that can be seen. But if it goes into diving deeper into systems and how things work and if it's functioning 100%, they're gonna leave that up to a professional in that field. You need to also make sure your clients fully understand what is and what is not included in that home inspection. Meaning, what is going to be something that the seller will repair, or maybe what they won't repair. Depending on your state, you may renegotiate the entire contract once you're under contract. Here in Florida, we negotiate a repair limit up front, so we have a set dollar amount that's set aside that the seller is going to make repairs up to that amount. And that is only based on warrantable items. So no cosmetic stuff is included in that. So your clients need to understand that they may see a nick in the drywall, but that's not necessarily going to be something that is repaired underneath the repair limits of a home inspection. Properly explain this to your client so you don't have any headaches down the road. Next thing you need to do is keep in constant contact with the mortgage lender. I recommend building a strong relationship with all of your vendors, your home inspector, your insurance guy, your mortgage lender, so you can refer these people out so you know how they work They know how you work, and you can expect certain things from people if you have a continued business relationship with them. So try to build these strong relationships with your vendors. That way you can recommend them to your client, and that will make this entire process a lot easier because you know you can rely on that person and you don't have to follow up with them. But if it's a lender you haven't worked with before, listen up here. If it's a lender you haven't worked with before, I highly recommend keeping in constant contact with that person to make sure that they're keeping up their end of the bargain, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, because you can't expect what you don't inspect. But having a good, deep relationship with vendors and lenders and vendors and lenders will allow you to not have to inspect as often, right? So build those relationships when you can, but do not neglect when working with a new lender or a title company for that matter, keeping in touch with them, making sure that they've got everything they need and making sure that they're reaching out to your client and doing everything in the back end on their side of the street. Next thing you need to think about is handling any interim negotiation and communication. This may include clarification from the title company, getting the survey from the listing agent, all title updates, lender updates and questions, and buyer and seller updates. Like, you're gonna be communicating probably, 5 times a day on one property, probably at least 20 communications back and forth every week until closing. I mean, that is the minimum, right? So be prepared. It doesn't just, you're under contract and your job's done, you're gonna go collect a paycheck. Like, that's not how it works. That's when you get under contract, that's when the real work begins. You're gonna also keep track of those contract deadlines. We talked about it earlier, but I recommend having a spreadsheet or a calendar or something with all those important deadlines on there to make sure you don't miss any. The last thing you wanna do is forget to send your repair request in before the repair deadline, and next thing you know, you're not be able to get any repairs done for your client. That would be very, very embarrassing. Next thing you need to think about is preparing for any negotiations following the inspection. Here in Florida, again, we don't really have renegotiation, but we do have to get seller approval. The seller has to agree to make the repairs of the things that we request. And for us here in Florida, those are warrantable items. And how I explain it to my agents and my clients is warrantable items are anything that hurt the functionality of the home. So anything to do with the roof, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, or day-to-day operation. The example I like to use is if the bathroom door lock doesn't lock, that is warrantable. It is supposed to lock. So if it's supposed to do something and it doesn't, then it is inoperable and it is warrantable at that point. But again, cracked tile, as long as it's not from a foundation issue, if it's from something dropping on it, or a nick in the drywall, or some wood chips and stains, like that is all cosmetic. That is something that's not covered underneath the Florida contract as far as repairs go. So as you're renegotiating and discussing all these things with the listing agent, you can see that there is a lot of work that goes into a real estate transaction once you go under contract. Our team has what we call an LDOC, which is a licensed director of closing. This is a licensed realtor who sits in our office, is a salaried employee, and handles all the paperwork, okay? So because she is licensed, she's not just what a lot of people call a TC, and she can renegotiate repairs, she can go to walkthroughs, she can do all the things that my agents can do. What this does is it takes some of that heavy lifting, not some, all of the heavy lifting off of my agents. So when my agents put a house under contract, they hand the file over to our LDOC. They actually fill out a form that actually shoots the entire form over to the lender, over to the title company, over to our VAs, which are our virtual assistants that are helping our LDOC behind the scenes, and it sends it to our LDOC. That kicks off the transaction for us. That way we know we have another transaction that we need to handle. Because our LDOC is not just handling like 1 or 2 closings for our agents. Like, we average over 20 pending at all times. So because of that, we have to have systems and processes that allow us to scale and do that many closings/transactions at one time. But the LDOC is responsible to do these 180 things between contract and closing. So the cool part about it for our agents is they don't have to worry about that. Our LDOC will order the home inspection, go to the home inspection, negotiate repairs, get all the title work, paperwork, everything over to the title company, get all the documents over to the lender, help the buyer get anything they need, insurance, all the stuff, get the repair request sent in, go to the final walkthrough, and then our agent can kind of ride in on a horse at the end of the transaction and show up for closing, kiss the baby, smile, and take pictures. This allows our agents to focus on what they do best, working with other buyers and sellers, selling real estate, not doing paperwork, okay? So because we have this system and process set up, it's what allowed us to scale over the years and allowed us to sell hundreds of homes year in and year out. Our LDOC is the backbone of our closing process. She takes care of our agents. She makes sure everything is done between contract and close. If you'd like a list of these 180 things that our LDOC and our team does between contract and closing, send me a DM. If you found this video useful, hit the like and subscribe button, pound the bell, and stay tuned for the next one.